Financial leadership is changing. CFOs no longer record history. They make history. This podcast will help you become a better leader, strategic thinker, and digital visionary. Welcome to Secrets of Rockstar CFOs, the ultimate podcast for chief financial officers. Follow along as Jack McCullough engages in exciting chats with accomplished CFOs, learning how they overcame obstacles and positioned their companies for the future. Here's your host, Jack McCullough.
Welcome back, Rockstars, to another episode of the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. And on the subject of Rockstar CFOs, you're going to really love today's guest. Hetu Patel is the CFO of Thrive Market. And Thrive Market is an online membership that makes healthy living easy. Since its founding in 2014, Thrive Market's become a touchstone of a mission-driven company at scale. In 2024, this mission-driven company generated more than $700 million in sales, delivering the highest quality, healthy food and sustainable products at affordable prices. Hey, too, welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I mentioned before that I have family members who are big fans, so they think what I do for a living is kind of boring, but they're going to be listening in today. No question about it. But I can oversimplify things a little bit. Maybe you could share a little bit more about, I almost said your name, of Thrive Market's mission. You can share your own mission too, if you're so inclined.
Yeah. No, I think you captured it pretty well. But we are a membership-based online platform offering highest quality, healthy, sustainable products. Our mission is to make healthy and sustainable living easy and accessible to all. If you look at the world we live in today, there are millions of Americans who are trying to live healthy, who have indicated wellness is a top priority. But there are several barriers to living that lifestyle today, right? The first one of those is it's time consuming. Like people can't find and shop for healthier products easily. In many cases, half of the American households are not in a driving distance to a health food store. For many, it is confusing. Not because of lack of information, but often due to contradicting information. And while online solutions solve for it, not all online solutions are very sustainable. So really, when Thrive Market was started a little over 10 years ago now, it was with our mission and really with the goal to break down all these barriers. And so we've really purpose-built our platform to do that. So for a $60 annual membership, members get access to a curated assortment of 6,500 or so better for you consumer staples, including more than 600 own brand products that we have carefully innovated. So that's a bit about Thrive Market.
Now, that's great. And I love when there's a mission-focused company that's making money too. You know, it's for businesses. It's great when you can make money and make the world a better place to be at the same point in time. And it's such a critical thing because, you know, myself and just so many people I know, the effort's real. Like we really are trying to lead healthy lifestyles, but it's difficult. You know, I probably eat within the top 10% healthy, and yet, you know, I perpetually am battling my weight and I'm diabetic, and you know, it's sometimes it's frustrating. It's like, God, what do I have to do here, right? But so thank you for, you know, making it a little bit easier for people to achieve their goals that way. But before we get into it, because I do think the company's fascinating, I want to get into your own background a little bit. And where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in I wouldn't call it small, but a town in eastern India. It's called Jamshedpur. It's also known as the Steel City of India, where, as the name gives it, there's a lot of steel production happening. It also happens to be a place where one of the top business schools is located. So my father was a finance professor at that business school, XLRI, and I grew up in the residential complex right on the campus of that business school. And by nature of that, like an early childhood experience was a lot of conversations with my dad, who was a finance professor. At that point in time, I never thought I want to be in finance, but obviously it had something to do with where I landed. And another childhood memory, which over time had greater impact on me than it had early on, was my mom, right? And she had a couple ways she led our household. One was avoiding waste. So she would not let anybody in the family like waste food, water, or electricity. She was almost on our heels for that. And then eating clean. Like it was a rare occasion when we ate outside. We would eat anything, but it was largely prepared at home. And so a lot of what that bit was taken for granted then, but like had lasting impressions throughout my career thereafter.
Interesting. So when did you make it to the United States?
Yeah, right after my high school. So my family moved here. It was 2000. I'd completed high school. We moved here. We moved to Columbus, Ohio, and I started my undergrads at Ohio State thereafter.
Interesting. You referred to it as Ohio State. And I was going to ask you, because you're the first person, everybody always calls it the Ohio State
Yeah,
University.
simply to avoid that comment, but it is the Ohio State, and I think it's officially the Ohio State now.
Yeah, because, like on the NFL, when the players introduce themselves, Joe Smith, the Ohio State University, but that's the actual official name, and that's how they brand themselves, right? So,
Yeah.
it's like the Juilliard School or the Mass Institute of Technology. There's only a few that I could think of that do that sort of thing. But anyway, you studied computer science, which in 2025 was probably a masterstroke for a CFO, right? I mean, it's digital savviness is just about as important as finance and accounting for a CFO at this point in time. But what made you pick computer science? And, did you envision a career in finance at that point?
I did not envision a career in finance. I love programming, and I thought that is what I was going to do. So I love programming for multiple reasons. It's just fascinating how you can break down a complex problem into logical components, solving those components in a very logical, analytical manner. And just the sheer power of programming to solve large scale problems and just make lives easier was fascinating. I still love that aspect of tech today. But I was fortunate enough to be on campus and be able to take other courses. And there was always this bit of curiosity. So I minored in economics, took a lot of business classes. But my vision then was to pursue a career in tech. My first job after school that kind of opened up more of an interest to broader business aspects and subsequently finance. But yeah, that was my undergrad focus at Ohio State.
Yeah, interesting. And I noticed you did an internship along the way in Zambia. And
Yeah, that was much later during my MBA summer break, which was a wonderful project. Again, back to sustainability. It was about helping a nonprofit organization scale a business idea. Somewhat relates to Thrive Market as well, like focusing on triple bottom line, people, planet, profit. And the idea was simple, and I'll briefly mention. One of the researchers had found a way to reduce human wildlife conflict was by growing pepper. This person, PhD, happened to be part of the family that owns Tabasco. And so they grew pepper all around the village. It reduced the number of elephants entering the village, humans hurting elephants, elephants hurting human. And then now we got all this pepper growing across. Now, what do you do with it? So part of it went to Tabasco, and part of it they created a brand, elephant pepper sauce. And our goal was to help scale that business, figure out a business plan, etc. So that was a project. We spent 3 months or 3 weeks in Zambia on the ground, and 3 months working remotely for that organization.
Well, that's fascinating. I'm going to have to double check with Jess after this, but I think you're the first person who's done an internship in that particular role out of all the guests we've had on this. So that is so cool. But anyway, so you've got you got an MBA at Haas, so you've got this world-class education, computer science at Ohio State, and MBA from Haas. Tell us a little about your career path. What was your first job coming out of grad school, and what that was like? Maybe some of the most important lessons that you learned along the way.
Yeah. I'll take a step back. Like when I came out of undergrad, I went to a company called Mettler Toledo, it makes precision instruments and services globally. And it was a unique program for early career, which was a rotational program. So I started off as a software programmer, but had an opportunity to do rotations in finance and marketing and supply chain. And that really triggered this interest in cross-functional aspects of the business and really getting deep into various functions. So that really led me to do the MBA, apart from having grown up in that context, as I'd mentioned earlier. And Berkeley was phenomenal in that aspect, right? Not only in terms of exposure to various industries, being in Silicon Valley, but also sort of developing some of the corporate finance chops. Coming out of MBA, Amazon wasn't as big then, but it was a job that I did not quite appreciate how impactful it would be as it eventually ended up being. It was the greatest decision in hindsight, uh, because when I joined, Amazon was 20 something billion dollars. When I left, nearly 12 years later, it was 500 something billion dollars. And I got to be part of like various core businesses that were very rapidly growing. And that experience itself was irreplaceable in terms of my growth as a finance leader and generally as an operator.
Yeah, that's the ride of a lifetime, right? You're there 20 years and it had to change your approach to, you know, business generally. And, I've actually theorized in the old days, GE was considered like the best source for corporate finance leaders. And I think Amazon Finance now has taken that mantle on. It's changed finance more than any company, corporate finance, I mean, any company within our lifetime. And when you look at Amazon, I'll call them Amazon alum, there's so many of them that have gone on to be CFOs at thriving companies afterwards. So it's just a remarkable opportunity.
It definitely is. And I think there are a few aspects that Amazon has done it right in terms of developing finance leaders. One aspect is promoting fungibility of talent. Amazon is one that isn't fearful of making large bets and trying new areas, but it often takes leaders who've spent 2, 3, 4 years and has kind of the Amazon DNA, the culture, the speed of decision making, and putting them in new business context and solving the problems there. So less of that domain specific knowledge, more of like, hey, how we innovate at Amazon. And that really does a couple things really well. Ability to get into a new business, adapt quickly, zero in on what matters, and then impact that business. And I think that at the core is a skill that really, to your point, Jack, why Amazon has become sort of a good pipeline for finance leaders. It's that approach to build leadership and talent within finance over the years that's really produced great results.
No, that's fantastic. And then you left Amazon, which must have been a tough choice, to go to Impact Foods. So walk us through, that decision, why Impact Foods, and, what that experience was like.
Yeah, went to Imperfect Foods. Yeah,
My bad.
yeah, and it was not an easy decision at that point in time. Like I had a really uh, great trajectory at Amazon, and I started in a leadership development program. As I mentioned, like a lot of scaling businesses. So I spent time in operations, leading full P&L for sports, outdoors, and toys division in US. I led the finance team for Prime and then Amazon advertising in its growth stages and its private brand business as an operator. All those aspects really like helped me get to the business fundamentals quickly, going into a new business, connecting business results to inputs that drive it, and really being an enabler as a finance leader, figuring out how to get something done, the deep dive, applying good judgment, and really crafting solution. And then most importantly, I think all those experiences taught how to improve quality and speed of decision making. So that was a path of a corporate finance experience I came from. A lot of CFOs come from either that path or broadly two other paths is like from the investment banking or from audit. But that operator corporate finance path was mine. And the reason I joined Imperfect Foods was a couple fold. One is to get the set of experiences I otherwise didn't have to be a CFO. But also, equally importantly, the mission. Imperfect Foods was a very mission centric company as well, around reducing waste from our food cycle. Goes back to the example I was giving about my mom, who was very, in her own way, obsessed about reducing waste. but I spent about a year there. It was 2022. We were out raising, and it was post-COVID period where demand had started normalizing, and the industry was ripe for consolidation. So in my time there, I ended up spending time overseeing a M&A transaction with Misfits Market. So I completed that transaction and then was back in the market. At which point, the opportunity at Thrive came around.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I want to ask you a little bit back on Amazon, because every person I've spoken to that's in your position, they had mentors, formal and informal, along the way. And I'm assuming you had some phenomenal ones during your journey at Amazon.
Yeah, numerous. And it's been, I wouldn't say any of those relationships formally started as a mentor relationship, but over time it ended up so. And one of the earliest ones were even pre-Amazon at Mettler. He was a great manager by the name Scott Fee. And one of the approaches that shaped me as a leader that I learned from him was he had this usual piece about walking up to my desk, striking a casual conversation, and sharing a problem. And invariably, I would go back in my subsequent one on one and share my idea of a solution to solve that problem. And he would brainstorm with me and let me execute on that. And it was only much later that I realized that those conversations were not casual. He very likely all along the way knew what needed to be done, but really planted that problem, let me come up with a solution, tweak the solution till it was what was needed to be done. But the key takeaway I got from it was it was a key element to groom someone, right? Like having them go through the solutioning process, the level of ownership that comes with it. And then with that ownership comes accountability to execute and deliver results. And I think some of that is very embedded in Amazon culture as well, which is where you were getting to. And I think that approach really has helped. And that, I saw that approach much more in a magnified way at Amazon. There are a few other things at Amazon from various leaders that I learned. And I'll emphasize more on the learning aspect. One was mistakes are part of making big bets and focusing on inputs. And so I was leading finance team right before the first ever Prime Day. And the first ever Prime Day was successful in terms of the sales really blew past our forecast, but it was a failure if you looked at all the external trends, which was Prime Day fail, because all the deals were running out as soon as it went live. And it was much bigger. We came on the brink of shutting down like our servers, our fulfillment network came on the brink of max capacity and breaking down. But we saw through it. And it was a follow up that was a learning moment from one of the key leaders. It wasn't about why we got it wrong, it was about how good it was and how we improve. And the meeting began with the emphasis that Prime Day was a huge success. And I think that mindset about accepting the risks that come with thinking bold, executing on big ideas, and focusing on improvement, I think was a big takeaway from several leaders at Amazon, including in this example.
No, that's amazing. So I want to ask, this is probably the dumbest question you'll be asked today because the answer is pretty obvious, but I will ask you anyway. You joined Thrive a couple of years ago, and I'm curious how the position got on your radar and what is it that attracted you to the role?
Yeah, with the recruiter outreach, even when we were closing the transaction, and at which point I had punted for a bit, and then it came back. There were a handful of things that really resonated with me. So what I was looking for was still a very mission-driven company, and the second aspect that was super important to me was a company that was building truly for the long term versus optimizing for the short term. And Thrive Market really checked the boxes on both. The mission at Thrive Market that I described has been the same from day one. And a lot of decisions were filtered through that lens. And a lot of the underlying business model at Thrive Market has been built with long-term focus, hyper curation, membership model, and that really resonated with me. And then the third, which was a huge plus, was it's still co-founder led company where the focus on the mission, the passion for it, and the ability to run and grow this business is still the same as it was day one. So the co-founders, Nick Green, who's the CEO, and Sasha Siddharth, who's the CTO, are both super actively engaged in the business. And what that really brings is continued member obsession for us, right? We avoid getting very process centric and continue to maintain that day one obsession about members and creating value for members. And I think those things really resonated for me. And it's a space that is super challenging and interesting. Nobody's really like done this very well. And we had a business model where we can scale to be a meaningful sized company, profitable, do well for people, do well for planet. And that Uber goal really closed the deal for me.
No, that makes sense. So I want to ask you, just because CFOs, I think it's fair to say they're not embracing generative AI and some other advanced technologies as quickly as the rest of the C-suite. It's understandable because they're dealing with privacy, data privacy issues, and security and whatnot. To an extent, other functions maybe aren't as concerned about them. But you're kind of on the cutting edge of all of these technologies. So how are you using AI in your work, and what are some things that, what are the biggest opportunities for CFOs to make their finance departments more efficient?
That's a great question, Jack. And just to be very transparent, it's things that we internally deliberate and talk a lot about as well, because many are in that exploratory phase. What does it mean for us? What is the right strategy that creates maximal value? A, for the business, B, for the functional group. So let me talk about things we are doing first for the business and then for the functional group as well. Uh, as a business, I think we found success in deploying generative AI in member services, and we did that early and well. The second area is really our member experience, and we have a lot of data about our members and their preferences, both explicitly stated when they join and take our onboarding quiz, but then also implicitly stated based on what they search for, what they click on, what they add to their cart. And we built AI personalization on this data set to really streamline the cognitive load of grocery shopping for all our members, making sure they're able to build a cart faster, easier, and able to discover products that resonate with them. So that's another area where we've seen tremendous success building member-facing solution, leveraging AI. And that I'd say is very much a differentiated advantage for us in this space. When it comes to finance specifically, I think the areas where we found a lot of immediate value are relatively simple, but also powerful to get a lot of sentiment across multiple earnings calls and analyst questions and releases. It's provided a very quick way of generating insights about each quarter of what's the trends in the industry, what are the analysts focused on, what are the common responses. And that in a great way helps put context of our business performance, being able to get that in a very quick fashion with our finance group. We are still in the journey of like figuring out what that AI layer on our internal data is to streamline our processes much faster. And I think that will be something that a solution will become sort of quickly available and adopted over the next couple of years.
No, it's interesting. And the other thing that I think about your company, you've got really a unique perspective on balancing purpose and profitability, which I think I read on your website at some point. But can you share how Thrive scales responsibility and maintained its focus on sustainability, affordability, healthy living, and yet, a profitable, well-respected company?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great question and comes up a lot when you talk about Thrive Market. Purpose and profitability are not mutually exclusive for us. It's really mutually reinforcing to a great extent. So one of the ambitions for us from inception has been to prove that a company with a strong mission can grow responsibly and deliver meaningful shareholder value. So that intent from get-go has been a key for us. In a Thrive market, like I talked about this triple bottom line philosophy with the internship example you talked about, I think we're doing that at scale, right? We measure our success in terms of people, planet, and profit. And we've structured our business as such as well. So we are registered as a public benefit corporation. Maybe that's one of a lesser known fact, but that requires us as management, our board, to really make sure that we are making every business decision from the lens of the mission we have stated. And that's really allowed us to make healthy living accessible to everyone, but do it in a way that reduces our environmental footprint and generating positive financial results. We've gotten to profitability. So these priorities are interconnected for us. On the planet side, we have been carbon neutral in shipping from day one, and we've done that with highly vetted partnerships for carbon offsets, as well as carbon reduction initiatives in-house. In 2018, we became like the first scaled e-commerce company with zero waste certification for our fulfillment centers. On people side, we give away free membership to those in financial need, also free membership to teachers, military, first responders. And so both of these really then come together as we create value for people and environment. It deepens the engagement of members who join us. It creates a sense of loyalty and relatedness. And when we internally survey, half of our members say that they join Thrive Market for the mission. And when they relate with the mission, what happens is they're proud to speak about it and share with their friends. One of the top reasons new members cite how they heard of us is through other members. And that really drives this member acquisition engine, making our member acquisition more efficient and effective. So I think it's really interconnected, and it reinforces being focused on people, planet, but then also sort of driving profitability and business growth. So it's hard to get it right always, but the fundamental is to start with that and build around it, and which is what I think at Thrive Market we've been successful in doing so far.
And, I want to also explore, just because, it wasn't obvious to me, membership economics, as opposed to a lot of ways you could go about this. And you're the first person I've spoken to with that particular model. But I'm wondering, does that give you any particular structural advantages, or what was behind the decision to go that direction?
Yeah, there are several structural advantages, but really for membership, it creates value for all parties involved, members, brands, but then structural advantages for Thrive Market as well. For members, it is a trusted destination for curated, better for you products with highest quality standard. So our store has 100% non-GMO products with more than 700 never ingredients, which really then members rely on us to choose the best of the best of what's available. We offer member-only pricing and promotions to them, and then really access to innovative products that we launch through our own brand. So there's real value creation for the members. On the brand side, they really get access to high intent consumers who are focused on healthy living to launch their products. And we are highly selective, right? So less than 5% of brands who apply want to get on Thrive gets on Thrive, which really then helps this notion of endorsement of a brand being on Thrive, of being health and wellness focused. And then it also allows for brands some protection because our pricing is behind a membership wall to offer shopper pricing to our members. And all those in combine, like members get a great selection that they can trust us on, sharp pricing. For us, really draws committed members. So yes, we spend on acquiring net new members, but once they join, more than 90% of our members are in the annual membership program. Once they join, the way they get the most out of the membership is by engaging more and purchasing more. And the more they purchase, the more the likelihood there is for them to renew the membership and starts a really positive flywheel. And it really takes out the need for us to spend money on engagement marketing. So that's one structural advantage. The other one is capital efficiency. Like we collect membership fee up front, which helps with working capital, but then also like offsets meaningful portion of our member acquisition costs almost immediately. So that efficiency is important. And then the third component I would say is member evangelism. When somebody signs up for membership and they feel good about that, they become evangelists and really helps drive uh, um, uh, an efficient member acquisition engine. So there are multifold advantages of this membership model. Again, for members themselves, for brands, and then structurally for us.
No, that's because my day job, I run a professional association. So it is a membership model, but I was having trouble envisioning how it would apply over to yours. But, one thing we share, our best salespeople are our members. And, it sounds like maybe your best salespeople are your members too. No disrespect to any of my colleagues who might be listening in, but, our members who love us, there's just nothing better. So,
And so, like being focused on members is super important, delivering value to our members, and I think the positive second order effects continues.
so that sounds good. And I want to ask you, you touched on data a couple of times earlier, and I heard the expression about a year ago, data is the new gold. I think it was Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank that I heard it from. I don't know if he came up with it or not, but you have access to incredible data, and I'm curious, in addition to just giving your members a phenomenal shopping experience, how else do you use data to drive advantage and just make you a better company?
Yeah, I think multiple ways. Yeah, I touched on it. So that member experience, a personalized member experience, is a big application of that data, and we have ways to go, right? Like we don't still yet we use ML, but we don't yet use generative AI, so we've got ways to go and continuing to iterate on it. But then that advantage is in many other aspects of the business. One area that maybe is a good example is our own brand innovation engine. And in a typical traditional retailer, more often how that works is you look at a SKU from a brand that's selling well, and you look for a manufacturer, co-manufacturer to make the exact same SKU, and you stock it as an own brand product right next to it, and there's a cost advantage. For us, it's a little different approach. We have the insight of what our members looking for and they are not finding, what are members buying and they are not liking, and what are the areas where there are gaps where we can up level our ingredient quality and really introduce products that fills the gap in the assortment. And so we really use our own brand innovation engine to drive new products in that sense. And that engine is fueled by the data that we are able to collect about our members from the search, what they're finding, what they're liking, and identifying gaps in our catalog. So that's one area. The other area is just having better visibility and predictability. Our membership model drives a little bit of predictability in our business. Nearly half of our sales comes from scheduled orders, so where members have added products to their schedule and get a box at the set frequency, and they get to edit it and so on and so forth. But that component drives a certain degree of predictability. So that predictability and that data helps improve our supply chain planning, both from a procurement perspective as well as labor planning in our fulfillment centers to make sure we are able to serve the needs of the member in a really timely way in the ways they come to expect of us.
Fantastic. And, I love when the guests are not CPAs. I have nothing against CPAs because, in fact, I used to be one. I spent several years at KPMG. But, your perspective is a little different. And I'm wondering what some of your KPIs that you use to evaluate and measure and report business success.
Yeah. It's a great question, and I think at a business level, it's easy to track outputs, but the real key art judgment is how do you boil it down to track inputs which are controllable by the teams. Oftentimes, revenue profit is not directly controllable. You have to break it down to the inputs, and I think those inputs link back to member experience. So how do you track a great member experience and ensure that we are continuously delivering value to our members and lining up inputs on that? So a lot of those the metrics I like to focus on is member experience. So one high level is over time, are we increasing product sales per member, which is a key indicator of how much members are using us, and we want to see that progress in the right direction over a period of time. The other, at an organizational level, is really tracking velocity and quality of decision making, and making sure the decisions that are two-way door decisions, if you will, that we can easily reverse. We're not spending too much time analyzing and slowing us down, running efficient two-way tests and making a decision and doubling down if the tests work and scaling back if the test doesn't. But then the ones that are consequential decision, really making sure that we're looking at the right set of inputs and analysis to make sure we get those right, because those critical decisions are harder to inverse, often have impact on member experience, and we want to spend time really honing those decisions. So at an organizational level, not necessarily a metric as such, but really it's the velocity and quality of decision making by enabling reversible decisions to be more experiment driven, and then focusing on getting the bigger, hard to reverse decisions with more depth and analysis.
That's great. And earlier you mentioned the CEO, Nick Green, who is also a co-founder of the company as well. And that puts an interesting dynamic on it, because one of the most popular programs we have is that strategic partnership between the CEO and CFO. And it's so different. When I was a CFO, I reported to him and that was it. If he gave me an order, and, I'm thinking of one particular guy, I either did it, or if I couldn't do it, I was free to walk out the door, I suppose, right? It wasn't really a partnership. Today it is. Sure, maybe he's a little bit higher and whatnot, but truly, the best CEOs and CFOs view themselves as partners. And how do you work on that relationship? And the fact that he's a founder, does that play into it in any meaningful way?
Yeah, and you hit on it. It's a super critical partnership for just success. But let me answer that, but give you a little bit of context. But I share about my background. Let me share a bit about Nick as well, to put my answer in a little bit of context. Nick could not have had a different professional trajectory than I did. Right? He started Thrive Market 10 years ago, but it wasn't his first company that he founded. He went to Harvard for his undergrad. During his undergrad, he founded his first company, which was education-based, making education more accessible to many. And he sold that company, moved to LA, and right after it started Thrive Market with its mission. And he's been at it for 10 plus years now with the same passion for executing and growing. So me, on the other hand, as I talked about, maybe a safer career professional trajectory, working at a company after my undergrad for 4 years, doing an MBA at a really, like, Amazon is a great growth company, and then honing my skills there. So we come from very different sort of professional trajectory, but there are other differences as well. Right? Nick is a visionary. He's got bold ideas, and he can really rally the team around those ideas in a way that people genuinely buy into the vision. He is really great at building authentic relationship with all stakeholders, internal and external. And I, on the other hand, like, fuss about the details, think about scaling efficiently as an organization and as a business. And this difference has actually helped us to have a really strong CEO CFO relationship. Like with him as a visionary focusing on long-term strategy, culture, innovation, inspiring the organization, and then me playing, call it the integrated role, right? Like translating that vision into execution, aligning resources, driving financial discipline, and making sure the trains are running on time. So I think that division really works well and is very complementary. And as a CFO, I feel like I can enable him to focus time on what he likes most as a visionary, and then me really pressure testing all the big ideas to make sure that they make financial sense, operationalizing them, and in a way that makes sense in terms of sustainable growth, financial outcomes. And as a CFO, it's not about saying no to those ideas. It's about vetting them and figuring out the when and the how for those ideas. And I've been really fortunate to have that understanding with Nick in ways we operate, and that really has been a key to that. And it also boils down to personal connection and the mutual trust, despite having different strengths. And I think there's no replacement to that. And I feel fortunate enough to have that with Nick to make the decisions in the business much more swifter and more sensible.
No, that makes sense. So I want to now, get your perspective. You've worked for some great companies, done some great things. And I just want to get your perspective on how you see the nature of the CFO role evolving in the years ahead.
Yeah. The CFO role, I believe, has been evolving even over the last couple decades. And I think it'll continue the trajectory over next decade, maybe at a faster pace. But the trajectory of that evolution, and Jack, you've seen it as well, is being more from purely like financial steward to becoming a strategic partner. And what does that really mean? And what does that really take? It means there's a deeper appreciation and understanding of cross-functional dynamics, what it really takes to get something done. I talked about this, but as a CFO, I believe it will be increasingly important to improve the speed and quality of decision making. A lot of tools might improve the speed, but it will be equally important to make sure the quality of those decisions are pretty healthy. And then really being that like connective tissue, like between data, focusing on insights and intel, where there will be continued evolution to make that easier, connecting that to the strategy, and really ensuring that the team is resourced to appropriately execute versus having a lot of like half executed ideas on the plate. And so I think being able to navigate through that is really critical and will become even more critical for a CFO role in years to come. At least that's how I view it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I'd love to get any advice you have for that next generation of CFOs, maybe the ones that they're not quite in the role yet, but they're on a path and they're going to achieve it within the next year or so.
Yeah. I think a couple. One, raise your hand for messy situations. Like oftentimes we'll be presented with like messy, sticky situations in a business, but I've been in many of those. But each of those for me has been a crucible moment, like high pressure situation, and you come out on the other end due to that high pressure with a very different leadership transformation in you. And as many of those crucible moments that you can get yourself into, I think you come out stronger, accelerates your professional development. And that is increasingly important because it may not even just be in finance role. Like doing at least one or two cross-functional roles gives you a much deeper appreciation for what it takes to get something done. So that would be one, right? Like get yourself in those, raise your hand to get yourself into those tricky, challenging situations. You come out just more stronger as a leader. And the other component is if you're closer to the CFO route, recognize the strengths that you have and what stripes you haven't had to have the holistic CFO role. So I talked about my career path being more from a corporate finance operator perspective. You talked about CPA background, which is super important. Having an investment banking skill set is super important. So identifying what you have and where you want to sort of complete yourself in terms of the other two. And it can be through hiring a team that has those jobs, having a network of people who can help you in those aspects. I think is super important as well to be well-rounded as a CFO.
Well, I think that's great advice. And hey, too, I know you've got a lot going on these days, busy growing company, but and I'm grateful for the chance you've gotten to know you, and our audience, I'm sure, is grateful for the wisdom that you've shared. And I just want to give you the final word.
Yeah, it's been great to be on this, Jack. So thank you. And the final word, at least for those aspiring finance leaders, would boil down to like stay curious and relentlessly focus on value creation in the business versus like planning and reporting and gatekeeping, but value creation in the business and staying curious.
That's great. Do you mind hanging on? I want to record a question that I fumbled. Your answer was fine, so you don't have to say anything, but it was I called it, what did I call it? Impossible Foods? Or I didn't call it it's Imperfect Foods.
Yeah.
Correct name, right?
Imperfect Foods, yes.
So I'm just going to repeat the question. So thank you, Alyssa. Yeah. So anyway, so let me catch my breath and then we'll do the cut and paste here. So, well, you had an amazing run at Amazon, and then you made what I can only assume is a very difficult decision to leave Amazon to join Imperfect Foods.
Thank you for listening to this episode. To continue your exploration of this role that focuses on strategy, leadership, finance, and technology, listen to more episodes of the show at rockstarcfos.com. Join this revolution, episode by episode. Push yourself to achieve great things and unlock the best opportunities available to you. CFOs are creating a legacy, and it's time for you to leave your own unique imprint on the world today. That's all for now. See you on the next one.